Welcome to the first edition of the Bioeconomy, Amazon Bioeconomy Investment Innovation Forum, which is brought to you by the initiative An Agreement for the Amazon and an interstate consortium of sustainable development of the legal Amazon. We understand that the Amazon diversity contains unique elements for the whole humanity to live better. Not only the fauna and flora are important for the health and regulation of the climate of the world, but also its peoples, the culture, the arts, the soils, the waters, the cities, and communities. We believe that keeping the Amazon sustainable and living involves everything and everyone who lives here. We need to preserve the biodiversity, use science and technology allied with sustainable development, always looking at better conditions of life for everyone who lives here. We want not only to keep the forest standing, but we want more standing forests, more biodiverse and sustainable, and less social and territorial inequalities. We understand that the Amazon bioeconomy, the economic and commercial activities from this biodiversity is a great ally to these sustainable developments that we look for. That's why I invite you to participate in the Amazon Bioeconomy Investment Innovation Forum. We want to bring new voices to this debate, to know different experiences and looks, and find synergies and pathways for a more prosperous and resilient Amazon. These are conversations for everyone. For those who look for investments, for those who look for options to invest, for those who propose public policies, and everyone who wants to understand more about Amazon bioeconomy. So shall we? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 11th panel of Amazon Bioeconomy Investment Innovation Forum. My name is Mariana Cohen. I'm a biologist, and I am the coordinator of strategic actions of the Executive Secretary of Science and Technology and Innovation of the Amazons. Today, I'll be the moderator of the panel, Innovation and Phytotherapics. From the guiding of social inequalities and territorial, considering the sharing, we intend to just discuss the phytotherapics and medicinal plants that make it possible for them to enter the international markets of social biodiversity products, considering the future trends of biosynthetics. To start our conversation, to start this topic, I'll call the first panelist, Dr. João Paulo Tukano. He's from the UFAM people, graduated in sociology, philosophy, and anthropology, and researcher of the Indigenous Amazon Studies and founder of the Indigenous Medical Center Pacífico, and member of the Science Panel for the Amazon of the Brazilian Academy of Science. Welcome, João Paulo. Thank you very much for having accepted the invitation. You have 10 minutes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation and for the opportunity. It's always good to share our ideas. I am an indigenous person from the Tuxtla River, and I eat Inhapira, Tibet, açaí, and esmoqueado. First, I want to say that I have always said that there is no use of discussing an economy or sustainable development if we don't take seriously the presence of the indigenous populations or the presence of the riverside populations and the slave descendants that are taking care of the forest. There is no use of talking about sustainability and economy if we don't take seriously that this forest is occupied by humans, not only humans like ours, but by other humans called Izarimasan. And we will conceptualize Izarimasan. So we have to think about a policy that considers all these dimensions. This is key for us to develop these so-called sustainable development bioeconomy in a balanced way. because everyone is operating and relating from their own concepts that the science needs to learn. So therefore, I'm going to present here by the medical center, the Indigenous Medical Centers Basericovi. Because for many people, these might sound wrong when we call medicine. I'm talking about medicine in the broadest sense. There is nothing broader than the art of healing. In this regard, I'm calling medicine. So our title is The Healing Forest, Herbs, Oils, and Medicine Essence, the Source of Treatment. The next slide. The Indigenous Medical Center was founded in June 6 of 2017 in the city of Manaus to offer health care through the indigenous specialists called pajés. So in this house here, we have the pajés that treat and help people with our medicines that is based in Bastacé. It is the first center that allows the public health care through the Bastacé, that is translated as faith healing, and medicine plants with the service of pajés. Bastacé means the power that our experts have to invoke healing qualities contained in the vegetables and minerals and other elements and other things. Therefore, it is the metachemical manipulation made by the words. Differently from what a biochemist or a researcher or a science researcher can get the leaves or the roots, it will take to the lab and manipulate chemically in order to extract some elements. We, the indigenous peoples, we use the word to invoke the healing qualities and the healing that take the pain off. So that's why we operate in two different models, one that is physical and the other that is metachemical. So this is what Bastacé is all about. And faith healing is different. It's what a priest or a preacher can make. This is another area of knowledge. So medicine plants, the indigenous medicine plant legally belongs to an association Eapamasan develops. Next slide, please. Justification. The indigenous peoples, according to the archaeological data, are present in this land for 13,000 years, and they are responsible for the development of many technologies, either in pottery, food handling technologies, medicine plant handling technologies, forest management, land management, and river management and healthcare. In this part, this is the first presentation that I make. I detailed a little bit of everything, all these technologies, what all these manipulations in this handling. The raw materials of the forest used by the indigenous populations for the healthcare with sustainable practices are possible to be transformed in commercialized products with the purpose of generation of income and consequently to contribute to the improvement of the quality of life with environmental preservation. Next slide, please. Therefore, we have a lot of potentialities to be developed. It is possible to use the traditional knowledge of our indigenous knowledge in the plant management, seeds management, oils and medicine essences, and other inputs to result sustainable projects that can bring income generation of the peoples who live in the forest. Our general objective is to develop products in natura, medicine products of herbs, seeds, oils, and essences based on the indigenous knowledge used by them for 13,000 years. Now, our specific objectives are to develop medicine products in natura as natural oils, herbs, and essences to foster the consumer market with natural products, the disclosure strengthening of the indigenous culture, develop alternatives of income generation in a sustainable way, and benefit herbs and medicine plants in natura, and to strengthen the local economy, generating sustainability and income according to the SDGs. Now, the products that we dreamed are teas and shells and medicine roots, natural and essential oils, and medicine plants. Our strategy, the strategic importance of the natural products and associated knowledge indicates the development of tools that present efficiency in its protection and preservation. The latter in the sense of sustainability of the material and immaterial heritage. The increment of the sustainable management is presented as the real source for the environmental and cultural preservation of the indigenous families, besides providing adjustments to meet the market demands and fostering the income of the families. Nature medicine products and herbs, seeds, and oils based on the knowledge used for 13,000 years is a possible way for us to resume and reconstruct all our knowledge.
Next slide, please. Us, indigenous peoples of the Alto Rio Negro, have two therapeutic practices, ACC and medicinal plants. Have the complete knowledge of medicinal plants, not only plants to cure, but also to kill. This should be clear. Forest is guardian to all types of medicinal plants. In other words, the forest is the cure itself. Next slide, please. So we have a great advantage. 13,000 years of managing the forest, have huge areas of forest and rich biomes and domain of medicinal herbs. So we have the action methodology. This proposal has the purpose of developing products in commercialization, incentive to practice, and local cultures. Next, please. These are our contacts of Indigenous Medicine Center. We have knowledge of the forest, have huge forests. We have knowledge of the medicinal plants and also the poisonous ones. What we lack is technology and money. If you want to partnership with us, we are ready. We need technology and money. Perfect, João Paulo, thank you. This is very important to have you here with us in the forum. You can see how the center works. And guys really need these connections to really strengthen more and more this indigenous knowledge. Now I call to the floor Cristina Ropke, she's a director of Centroflora and CEO of the technological innovation company based in biodiversity. She's a master's and doctorate in biochemistry, experienced in projects with genetic heritage and technological development, and intellectual property and development of natural products. Thank you for being here. No, I thank you. I'm very honored to be here and participate in this type of discussion with such special people as I see here today. I take on João's speech. It's hugely important and shows how traditional knowledge serves as a base as well for the development of phytotherapy medicines and within the scope of industrialized products. Traditional knowledge can bring development economy wise because we know the financial return that come from this type of medicine and the sharing of benefits ends up promoting the development of the chain of development and production of the finished product. To invest in this knowledge and bringing to the market herbal products within the scope of sanitation regulations has a lot of impact and means a lot to the country. So as we are talking about phytotherapeutic and the power of Brazilian medicinal plants in a context of bioeconomy, I want to share with you guys a video that shows what is hidden within this forest about substances with completely inedited molecular structures and could be the inspiration for the synthesization of compounds to fight cureless diseases. A substance like this, when applied to a cancer that cannot be cured or any other disease or of the central nervous system, for example, that we don't have any cure yet, this value of the intellectual property and the licensing and the novelty of this knowledge could reach $1 billion. This information is hidden within a plant in our biomes. I want to share this message because every time we burn the forest, we could be burning information that could give origin to patents and substances that could cure diseases that cannot be cured and also bring added value in terms of negotiations in the pharmaceutical market of extremely important value for the development of the country. So I have a video that will show what I am saying here about the potential of the country seeking solutions for diseases that cannot be cured from its technological basis and become even a important actor in this scenario. So what João brought today adds with this ancient history that works together with this initiative. So let's watch this short video and I believe we'll be able to keep it in time. Investment. Don't be fooled. Science is made of questions. All the knowledge, innovation, and discovery was once a question mark. They widen our knowledge, mold our future of health, science itself, and the greatest wealth of the planet, biodiversity. El Nebius and Apens present some of the most precious questions of humanity are put together here. What if the definitive, most aggressive cancers to be cured is here? What if the difficulties of elderly age would be overcome? Medical needs that are not attended are among the greatest challenges of science today. The answer is on a new look of natural products. The journey of cure is long. It goes through synthetic molecules and the knowledge of ancient people. Future is in the association with new technology, revealing the most complex molecules that are there, natural ones. Rare heterocycles and beautiful combinations result discoveries. 4 Brazilian biomes gather the potential larger than all the known molecules. This is the Amazon. Tropical rainforest, Cerrado, Caatinga, all of them are incredibly diverse. What if we could collect plants and find their most precious substances? What if the characterization was done a fraction of the time compared with current processes? What if it was gathered in one of the most diverse natural products library in the world? Brazilian Molecular Powerhouse is more than a great program. This is a scientific revolution. Since 2015, we've collected more than 700 species and 3 to 5 expeditions a year, and counts on one of the greatest sources of power in the world, Sirius. Mapping molecular structures never seen before. Library here. I don't I don't know if you guys were able to see the end in the main message. Last sentence was Alexandria Library exists, it's green and it's here. This is a little what I wanted to bring from our experience in this area. I thank you once more for the invitation. Thank you, Cristina. Very nice to see in your speech and your video this evolution of the traditional knowledge for this great technology. Developing the phytotherapeutic products since the basis to these great technologies that have been developing biosynthetics, for example. Thank you for your speech. Now let's hear Francine. She's a partner at GSS, acts academically in systems related to biodiversity, of course, genetic resource access, almost 20 years. Participates in international COP conferences on this. Welcome, Francine. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you very much, Mariana. Thank you everyone for the opportunity to be here. Well, my contributions, as Mariana said, I've been working in the GSS. It is a consultancy company that is helping many players and many companies and research institutions about the law to access of genetic resources in Brazil. But in this panel, I think we have some challenges that are worth mentioning. Brazilian legislation is one of the most mature and innovative in the world. What do I mean by that? That in a study that we made about the legislation around the world, the Brazilian ones is the easiest one from the implementation perspective. We do have a lot of bottlenecks, we do have a lot of problems, but I still believe that it brings more practical mechanisms for the compliance. But we need to think beyond what these mechanisms are and what are the rules we can apply. I was participating a few minutes ago in an international event about ABS, and the discussion was in what we can learn from Brazil, from the rule regulation perspective in implementation of the access to genetic resources and benefit sharing, and how can we improve this legal framework, this regulatory framework. And my impression is that beyond the legal obligations, we need to enter the movement of making people aware, all the users aware. If we become, as a practice in the private sector and as a consumer, if we consider that respecting other countries' sovereignty about their genetic resources, value the traditional knowledge associated, which is really, really rich, as it was mentioned here by João Paulo and Cristina. And valuing this knowledge and making it possible, the benefit sharing, guarantee the sustainable use of biodiversity as a principle ends up being easier, more reasonable, cheaper than worrying about rules and compliance and fears of fines and knowing that I am complying to some rules only as a requirement, a legal requirement. So I see that a great advancement would be to establish partnerships with this purpose, with this intention, and these partnerships based on the trust relationship will be more effective and less costly than the regulatory mechanisms. So today I see that the greatest bottleneck of the ABS system is the bureaucracy and the fear of penalties. And we cannot focus on these hindrances. We have to look at bioeconomy as an investment in the future, as something innovative, and not only as an aspect of complying with the law, or some people say, do I have to pay for the benefit sharing? No, we don't have to pay anything. If we understand that the benefit sharing is part of this sharing and how much I am benefiting from the use of a natural resource, I'm benefiting from an ancestor knowledge from a community in order to develop a product, I am actually sharing these benefits to make sure the next generations will be able to use these natural resources. So this is the greatest paradigm that we have to fulfill and stop understanding and stop thinking that the rules come to create hindrances and to make the research process more expensive. So the Brazilian legislation was always criticized, especially the old legislation, the old Bill of Law, because of the bureaucracy of free and informed consent. And our new regulatory framework is pretty easier with the CGN platform that we can register the research without having to wait for the approval of the government. But it's worth mentioning that this rule is not only in Brazil. We are talking about an international regulatory framework in Brazil in July 2nd, June 2nd uh, is part of the Nagoya Protocol. So this has to be fulfilled by the Brazilian legislation according to the genetic resources and traditional knowledge from other countries. So there is an increment between member countries and between companies and researchers. So the innovation is here. We have the greatest biodiversity in the planet. We have an unmeasurable natural wealth. So we have to think that the trust relationships based on the principles of respect and the rights of each one of the players is more promising than the concern with rules and penalties. So this is the message that I would like to take away with, and as an encouragement for everyone who is here, and for us to think together on how to build this scenario in a more transparent and to bring benefits for all the players involved. Thank you. Thank you very much, Francine. Before I'll pass the floor to the commentators, I would like to call our experts in knowledge management, Clara Daret, to share the graphic systematization that she made until now. This graphic representation is to give more information about the panels, and we are going to use this resource not only to register the memories of the panels, but also to promote the global view of every topic approached here. All the charts will be available and can be accessed in the website of the event and in the Página 22's website. Clara made a graphic representation of the first speeches. It's not finished yet, but you can access that in the website later. Thank you very much, Clara. Now I'd like to call our first commentator, Sandra Zanuck. Sandra is director of the Amazon Doors technical and scientific consultancy, where she worked since 2015 in the structuring of the supply chains of Amazon raw materials and in the area of research and development of products and process with Amazon ingredients. Welcome, Sandra. Hello. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you, Mariana. Thank you, Tatiana, for the invitation and for this virtual panel that contributes immensely to this discussion. And I also want to make myself available for future work and future partnerships. I think that Cristina and Francine and João Paulo complement each other in this difficulty that we have, that we face in Brazil, that is making innovation in biodiversity medications. So these are people that complement each other in all this discussion. And certainly they have a lot to contribute so we can advance in public policies that can help, especially in the state of Amazonas and all the Amazon region, to help researchers and companies and consultancies to make innovation happen inside the resources that we have in terms of biodiversity. I'd like to start saying that I thought it was wonderful. The video that Cristina showed, it's wonderful and very pedagogical, and it makes us think. Now, science is made of questions, and the question is, what is the importance of the Amazon products? Are they important? This is a rhetorical question that shouldn't exist anymore, if they are important or not. Because I am an organic chemist, graduated by the University of Santa Catarina, and have been working for 18 years with the development of products and processes with Amazon raw material. And we know that the most complex structures in the world come from the greatest genetic diversity of this ecosystem. If we think that 92% of the medications are based on models of molecules coming from animals and vegetables, so we have aspirin, penicillin, captopril, and Taxol, and many other medications. Astolfi is one of the herbal medicines totally produced and developed in Brazil, and Immunomax, which is iconic in my opinion because it comes from a vegetable Amazon species. We have here some plants that originate these medications. So we shouldn't have any doubts about the importance of the Amazon products and the importance of the forest as this library of new molecules with all this potentiality of markets, that the market's over at $1 trillion, that is the market of herbal medicine. So this shouldn't be a doubt, and we shouldn't start from the premises that it's not the preservation of the standing forest. To protect this existing biodiversity, so we can think that in the future, we will continue to have this library at our disposal for future access to this biodiversity. So I think there is no doubt, and this should be a point for all the public policies to start from. Have this importance, and the importance is clear and well established. What concerns me a little bit is how do we take all these players have synergy, as João Paulo with all his wisdom from the Indigenous Medical Center, how Cristina inside a company in a high technological group, in the bureaucratic assumptions that we have in our legislation, how all these can become synergic in practice, so we can actually have more products in the shelf from the Amazon forest. Because I think it is a little bit frustrating for us researchers to think that only one product from the Amazon is in the shelf. I think this frustrates me a little bit as a researcher. How can we increase this number and diversify the number of products that we can put on the shelves in a sustainable way, preserving the traditional knowledge, helping in all the chain, the base of the chain, especially strengthening the Amazon region in terms of society, in terms of reducing the inequalities in the base of the supply chain of this raw material. So my first question goes to Cristina, and then I will also ask to João Paulo and Francine. And that, Cristina, we have to think, for example, your institution, Centroflora, how do you see these institutions dealing with the main challenges that we can face today? That is being able to perform research and develop raw material, Amazon raw material based products. How do we deal with the challenges that is the continuity of supply and the quality of the raw materials? How this ecosystem and this group of people that are interested in these sustainable developments, how can then gather in order to facilitate so these bottlenecks are minimized and can easily obtain products on the shelf?
It's an excellent question, Sandra. What aggregates here in this very rich moment, because Brazil woke up to strategic dependency about strategic medicine components. This discussion is very strong in the Ministry of Science and Innovation, and biodiversity through raw materials being here with the verticalization of the productive chain are an interesting option to decrease this dependency. So these bottlenecks have been studied by several bodies, the pharmaceutical companies bringing this system of technological maturity for the phytotherapeutical world. And one of the greatest bottlenecks is the cost of clinical validation. Because for the knowledge to traditional knowledge to reach the shelf, we have the matter of the regulated world. So the cost is not so high when you get financial return, it's worth it. But what happens from that? This connection between the players, for example, João Paulo, and a company like the Centroflora group that connects with the industry, from the pharmaceutical industry, that is another player that needs to be together, from the bottlenecks and the mapping and the discussion with academia and other players that are here in this meeting, we see a consortium that involves the institutions of science and research, the ones like João brought, the middle industry, the supply chain, and pharmaceutical industry, so we have a notice in the scope of the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation that is still awaiting for resources to authorize this pressing matter that is the connection between the players to rise with this chain is mapped, is designed, and financial resources will be placed for clinical validation. But the consortium needs to be established. We have traditional knowledge, we have ECT and the middle industries, and the agronomy part with raw materials and traceability, together with the pharmaceutical industry. The consortium is a situation that needs to be solved for this to be possible. There is a movement of part of the society to overcome these bottlenecks and have more Amazon products on the shelves. Perfect. I think that the time it takes to develop a medicine, all this time, it worries me if there is different logic for the products that are linked to traditional knowledge, so we can decrease this great time that it takes to for this product to reach the shelf. Yeah, this is this wealth of the phytotherapeutical medicine world, because when we have record of using humans and when we can connect to this industrial process, guaranteeing that what goes to the patient in its composition is what is present in traditional use, we have the opportunity of reducing the investment in clinical studies and the time to reach the market. Times are big, the terms are large, and maybe 10 years going through the clinical phases for me to make the demonstration of the traditional use connected to the product that is being developed. We can reduce this time to 3 or 4 years. This impact of the traditional knowledge is really huge here. I see that Asheflon, when they developed it, it was 7 years. It wasn't so long, but so I believe we can reduce and have quicker results for the chain and for the base of the chain as well. Because we are also thinking that social inequalities ends up being diminished when the impact reaches the base of the chain. So we have to have the product being sold. It worries me because how much how much we can work for this base to start to feel the effect from the beginning, for us not to wait for 5 or 7 years for these groups to have any benefit from all this development. I also have a question for Francine, which is the regulatory difficulties that we have. Would it be an option for us with non-monetary benefits sharing for us to have projects together with traditional communities, with associated knowledge? In this logic of applying non-monetary resources, how do you see the implementation of these projects? Is the difficulty greater with the situation that is occurring with the environment ministry and these law insecurities with the application of resources? How do you see these matters? This is a tricky question, Sandra. This has created a lot of frustration in the traditional communities. had for 15 years a lot of bureaucracy, but it allowed for the user, the industry, to have direct contact with the provider of the sample and established with this provider the sharing of the benefit. This contract would, of course, go through a bureaucratic process, but the rules were defined between the provider and the user. Of course, there were a lot of problems there, but these problems were the new law trying to solve these problems understood that genetic heritage is not as belonging to the provider. If I have in my backyard araucaria and I will develop the research from this sample with the sample from my house, this agreement should be with me. So genetic heritage became a common asset of the people. So the government represents the interests of the people. The definition of these projects of sharing benefits went up to the government. So the law also tried to innovate in saying, being a government, I don't have to have a single model of sharing. It could be through a government fund and offer projects of sharing benefits for a community so you can develop and build, continue negotiating directly with the local communities, but who signs this contract is still the government. So this is the biggest bottleneck in the biodiversity law today. 5 years have passed, the new biodiversity law, and today we have no agreement confirmed with this law. Today we don't have any contract signed by the government. So the fund is working, can bring resources for the community. No, also not. The fund was created, partnership with BNDES has been defined, but we haven't had any meeting with the committee of the fund, and all the value, 2 million reais, are in the account, but it hasn't been applied for the communities yet. So if you ask me today what is the best solution for the sharing of benefits to happen, we need to go through the valuation of the associated knowledge. We have to not be afraid anymore of researching for the traditionality of the use of our assets, because if I have a direct relationship with the person who holds this knowledge, he's the person who I should share it with. The communities are eager to form these partnerships. Of course, there are still a lot of untrust and situations where people have been malicious. But with this new development, people have the intention of doing good things. So this would allow for me to continue to have this dialogue directly with the community and defining the rules of sharing the benefits without depending on the government. Even if I have to share one part, a percentage with the fund, but I would be able to transform this objective of the law that is the sharing of benefits in a more fair way with the community and with the fund to attend the other communities that are co-owners of this traditional knowledge. Very good, Francine. This is one way out for the companies to lose this fear and to have a law team that is very strong. We also realize that we are biting our own tails here for us to generate this law, legal insecurity for the companies who worked with. They ended up replacing these ingredients for them not to have to deal with these legal issues. The companies, I know of a situation that companies that started producing the soap bar that had the ingredient from the Amazon, and they opted to replace it with any raw material, not necessarily Brazilian, for them not to have this problem anymore. I think this is a matter of positioning in the market for these companies as suppliers of products based on Brazilian raw materials and all this biodiversity with all this associated knowledge or not. This is also a cultural issue for each company to establish this type of strategy. I'm here in Florianopolis, and after 18 years working with the Amazon, seeing in practice how effective a lot of the Amazon traditional products are. See, here in the south of Brazil, we have no knowledge of these products. Of course, other than the academia, but people don't know of the how effective and the importance of these products from the Amazon, the traditional associated knowledge, how they can visualize the application of this product.
So I see a need for us to make these products more visible. The visibility of these products can be shown to the population. So we see that they don't have a lot of visibility. I wanted to talk to João Paulo. Paulo, according to what Cristina said and what Francine said, how do you see the Indigenous Medical Center acting in this supply chain? How do you see that the Indigenous Medical Center can contribute? And how do you believe that in this whole process, we have your traditional associated knowledge that will generate end benefits in the end of the chain? You are willing, as I understood, you are willing to create partnerships. And have you done this before, or till now you never had a partnership like this? Well, we have the accumulated history in this, that the researchers or the companies or the investors or the universities, they only look at us as a simple source of information and not as a subject for individuals. So when Cristina and Francine comes with this new possibility to understand and create partnerships, these open new possibilities for us to be a consortium. I don't want to be only a source of information, because the researchers come to our community and say, okay, you can sign here an agreement or confidentiality agreement, but they do not share with us the challenges. Being a partner to me is to face the challenges and the victories together. I like when Francine said that this payment cannot be only a payment, but as an investment. So it changes the whole relationship. So the Indigenous Medical Center is open for partnerships, but it's not open for only to give information. We want to be a partners. We want to participate in all the process and the difficulties. I know the bottlenecks. I have discussed with a lot of people how difficult it is for us to reach a joint agreement with the partners. And this bureaucracy has moving away the investors. When a company says that the indigenous have the domain, but it's very complicated to deal with them, they usually use these words. In order to go into the indigenous land, it's very difficult. So you possibly will leave there arrested. I say, but who creates this bureaucracy? It's not my father. It's not my aunt or my uncle. It's not my family that created this bureaucracy. Somebody thought about that. So it's not our fault. So this perspective for us to show a logic of consortium is our policy in the Indigenous Medical Center. Therefore, I presented this proposal aiming at these possibilities of building partnerships, creating partners. And I want to make something very clear. One thing is to research active ingredients. Another thing is to research herbal products, indigenous herbal products. We, the indigenous populations, we are essentially to me, in the Indigenous Medical Center, when we discuss herbal products, we go to these logics to put in the market these products that are natural, but with this proposal. And it is open for more complex research that has this part of active ingredients. We need bolder investments. So we are talking about these relationships between the Indigenous Medical Center, that behind me we have all this set of people, entrepreneurs and practitioners, and the people that can teach us, and we want to create partnerships from company to company. Perfect, João Paulo. Yes, we have to feel part of the process and not only being an informative link. We have to be part of the development as a whole. So I don't know about my time, Mariana. Yes, you went over your time. Okay, I'm sorry. Just let me conclude here. I wanted to leave something for us to think. Is that we cannot think about valuing the forest without thinking about sharing the spaces that the forest provides and the knowledge that it bears. So we have a population that has to be preserved in terms of their knowledge integrity and their ways of living. So we have to preserve the standing forest, share these spaces with these populations, and with these practices that needs to be recognized. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sandra. It's a very rich conversation. I'm loving it. In order to continue this richer conversation, I'd like to call our next speaker, Professor Spartaco Filho. He's a biologist, master of biology, molecular biology, has a postdoc in genetic engineering in the Science and Technology Institute of the University of Manchester, and he integrates the scientific boards of Cristalli Pharmaceutical Products and is our partner in the Amazon Hub. Currently, he is the professor of the Federal University of Amazonas, and Professor Spartaco has a vast knowledge in herbal medicines and synthetics. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to thank for the opportunity with the organization of the event. This has been very enlightening with João Paulo's presentation, Cristina, Francine, and all Sandra's comments. Sandra has been able to make some questions I selected here. So I'll focus on a part to complete it. I think it's very important. This goes for the state and government, federal governments, that to help with this consortium, it's very important to go back to strengthening the institutions of science and technology, universities, research centers, because it's been approximately 10 years that very little resource is being directed to the infrastructure part. A lot of the certification of products goes through the analytic centers, and a lot of these equipments are outdated, need to be replaced. It's a very important aspect, not only in this equipment part, but in projects of restructuring of groups, and this has been even more hindered by the pandemic. Access to labs is very restricted. Thinking about the future, very important for us to go back to financing science and also the part of technological development in the country. The government to go back to participating more actively in this. Of course, it's not completely null. There is will, for example, from your group or sect. We also see the Ministry of Science and Technology fighting with the little resources they have. But it's important for the rulers to have knowledge of this. I think it's very interesting that this medicinal, indigenous medicinal center could be considered as a point of focus of several indigenous peoples. Need for them to be included in this development. Be a part of them, as João Paulo put very well, of the process as a whole. A very interesting aspect. As a genetical engineer, and I have seen the things that are happening in the world, and I would like to point something out, not to break any advancement, but we have to reinforce in this area. Country invested a lot in the genome area. There's a lot of competent area. So the part of genetical engineering, with the more recent evolution with the sequencing techniques of synthetic genes, new generation sequencing, we can think of complex genomes like the human that used to take 10 years with the previous sequencing technology. There is a class that is synthetic microbiology. We can synthesize bacterial genomes. They have been artificially created yeast chromosomes, for example. How this relates to the future of this area. There's a very important work with synthetic biology in technology that has been done from a group in the Berkeley University that was to produce, due to the need of more products and lowering the prices, transfer all the metabolical way of artemisinin from the plant to the yeast used in beer. Artemisinin can be produced by beer yeast. This is a synthetic biology product. Sequence the genome, synthesize the genes, interfere genetically in the yeast to be a super producer of this substance. So the future world points to this as well. And of course, there is room for both things, the organic and natural things, but we also have to know of what could come in the future and to be prepared. Maybe in some cases, maybe a project from the Indigenous Medicinal Center, really worth it to do it synthetically of one or two substances. We have to be prepared. We have to structure ourselves for the future because the synthetic biology is going to be used for a lot of things, including genetic therapy. The quickness that the vaccines are being made is because of synthetic biology. So there is always room for natural things, even more when the natural is connected to the spiritual. We also have to think about the preventive side. Most of the times, the pharmaceutical companies and also the non-traditional medicine is focused on cure. And this statement by João Paulo is very interesting because when when we were able to sequence the Guaraná genome, we also sought the works. Guaraná is one of the species that was domesticated by the indigenous because they were able to notice its importance as a stimulant because of the caffeine, for example, as food because of the protein. But there are works that are very interesting. It is a fantastic plant. There are substances that fight cancer. The studies are stomach cancer, but certainly it fights other types as well. It's much more important to prevene than to fight it. Antioxidants and flavonoids, there's always this room, but we have to focus on this side. I only realized that when João Paulo said it. I think this is a responsibility of mine to say this, but I want to be clear that I don't want to hinder the development of these chains. Maybe synthetic biology will even help at some step of this way. So I would like to make a question for João Paulo that he kind of answered already, and a question for Cristina. João Paulo, have any concrete example of interaction with ICT or company for the development? I know he has bases, he has CNPJ, has knowledge of what he's doing. Have any concrete example? And for Cristina, I'd like to hear to develop a phytotherapeutical day, what is the greatest difficulty? João. Thank you, Professor. We have been doing this work for 4 years. This is very interesting because first moment it was always crowded because people came with this imagination of meeting a pajé with the rattles and smoke. They used to say, "Is this where the pajé is?" And when is this the pajé? Will he do the cure ritual? This imagination is rooted in the society. We are consolidating 4 years now. We still don't have any interest from the universities and doctors, companies. This is very strong in people's minds. So up to now, no medical student or any other student showed interest. We are still proposing, participating in this event because we want to show that we are available, find a new way that is possible to do it together. No doubt this event will be a starting point that is going to be very important for this interaction, João. For us to get to know each other and get to know that this exists, it will be publicized. This initiative is very interesting. And of course, it's open to collaboration. And proposals will surely appear on what you are seeking for the center. Congratulations. So, Cristina, what's the greatest difficulty that we have on making phytotherapeuticals in Brazil? João Paulo just said one of the examples cannot see each other. The harmonization of the language as well for the research and the regulation in the industry. We have been working for almost a year now. The proposal of a platform that is called Inova Fito Brasil. For example, the medicinal center can place, without mentioning what the plant or the application, but the therapeutical indication or the name of the plant, if it's protected, for it to be visible on a platform that is programmed to take all the projects of ICTs and knowledge holders, load on it, and to analyze it with the technological maturity levels RAP uses, the fostering institutions use. If I have a traditional use information for one sort of a disease, will be on TR1. Not it's less valued, but for the investor to know which level it is in, so they know how much they need to invest for it to reach the higher levels. So this platform has a checklist of from research to technological development, walking inside the bureaucratical demands. This is not such a wide knowledge, and maybe some simple things that we needed to have done in the beginning for it to be on the record end up not being done because just because we don't have the regulatory basis at hand when I'm doing it. So the platform sets which step of the scale. So will you test your ideas so the TRL2 is set up? I'll design the project in an experimental model to test this hypothesis. 3, I do the extract, but reproducibility with fingerprints with not only this sample of that collection of that moment works. So I'll take under consideration the variability that is part of the climate and the species. Does it work? So I go to 4, industrial production, reproducible, with a series of bureaucratic prerequisites and methodology, a lot of things, validation of process, 3 lots reproducibility. So I leave the academic world and go to technological development. This has all been designed so when people invest in clinical studies, that is the greater risk and demands more investment, the other tasks has been completed to diminish the risk at the highest level possible for the investor.
This is what we understand, that this is an approach that it can help, and the launch of the prototype is forecasted to September. And the idea is to invite all the ICTs and everyone who wants to participate as a beta tester, because it is a public platform. It's not going to belong to the Centroflora group. So it is being built in partnership with Stella Institute that made the Watts platform, for example. So they have a huge competence to deal with this. I don't know if I answered your question, but to me, these were the bottlenecks, and we tried with a larger group. There are many people involved. We tried to work with these points in order to foster this development with the least risk possible, and to make the investors see the knowledge holders and the results of the research. You're on mute, Professor. Okay, very interesting. This will be very useful. And also, in the development chain of a specific herbal product, maybe there is something missing. And this can even help an action or a project that can solve that bottleneck, so everything becomes more robust to move on to the clinical trial. So congratulations on this initiative. Thank you, Mariana. I will pass the floor to you now to continue the panel. Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Cristina and João. This discussion has been very rich. I'm really enjoying, and I think the public is also enjoying, because we have a lot of questions. We are in our last 10 minutes. I won't be able to ask all the questions, but I will ask some of them here. We can have one round of answers. We have a question here. How do you see the acceptance of the population about the use of traditional medicines and the herbal products? Is there a niche for the market for these products? Another question. About the visibility of the Amazon products. How do we reach more people inside the countries and later outside of the country? These are 2 questions. If we have time, we have other questions here. You can start, Cristina, maybe. Then João and Francine can answer. I missed the first question. Can you repeat the first question? Yes, how do you see the acceptance of the population about the use of traditional medicine and the herbal products? Is there a niche in the market for these products? Well, when we go to the herbal medicines itself, from the regulatory perspectives, it is a medication, so it has to prove safety and efficacy and quality. So there is partially to be more prescriptive or prescriptive on the Brazilian class than the population itself, because we perceive, especially in the younger generations, they are more open to a new mindset that values the traditional knowledge and the issues of circular economy and everything. But about this niche of herbal medications, I think the traditionality is translated to everything that the medication that is in the shelf has to present. This was perfect, Cristina. I was going to answer exactly the same thing. I have nothing to add, but to say in other words that our main bottleneck is not in the interest of the consumer, but in the middle class. And maybe it's about generation. I think this is about to change because as the new consumer is trying this new treatment more natural, they will also be the new doctors of the future. So I think that we are in a transition moment. The medical class, the old medical class, still has some restrictions about the herbal products, but part of my generation is the generation that thinks that the medicine is highly synthetic. I think that the next generations will come with a different mindset. So we do not see that only in the herbal product, but also in the homeopathy and the advancements that we can see moving forward. So I agree with what Cristina said. João Paulo, can you answer? I think that medicine, as a Western knowledge, demonize some knowledge. They decharacterize and disapprove and put in the level that everything is not science, is not medicine. For example, our healthcare practices, they are called rituals. And comparing with the witchery, with magic and something like that. It is our model to take care of people's health. That is a different way from our concept, from our conceptions of healthcare of the person who lives here. Another example, on the Black people. Some people say it is a religion, a religious ritual. A religious ritual can be healthcare. They just use different concepts. One official thing is the hospital. And for Black people is a health center. And for indigenous population is a tent. So it disqualify other knowledges and because of other knowledge. But now we reached a limit. We are in a limit. We lost this level of being the goddess. And we do have our medicine. I give a clear example when we dared to put the name medicine in this house here. My professors, anthropologists, were against it. My friends who are doctors, they were against because it says that it is not medicine, it's traditional knowledge, millennial knowledge, it's not medicine. And I said, you tell me that according to the archaeology that I bring, that I have 14,000 years of experience, and you're telling me that this is not medicine? You arrived here 521 years ago, and you're telling me that this is not medicine. So we need to learn how to dialogue. I'm not saying this is the best medicine or better or worse. These are two different models of medicine that can solve my problem. Here in the Indigenous Medical Center, there are patients who are being treated by a doctor or taking medications. What do I tell them? Continue with your medication, continue with your treatment. Here we are going to do our part from our conception of disease. We are going to treat you. And this has shown good results. We have 4,600 people, and out of these people, 99% are non-indigenous people. This is a good reflection. Thank you very much, João. Since we don't have a lot of time, I'm going to one last round for you to give your brief remarks, your last remarks, so we can close the panel. Professor Spartaco, if you want to start, and then Sandra, Francine, Cristina, and João. Well, in order to say goodbye, I would like to say this. I want to reinforce what João Paulo said. These two actions are complementary and they approach in a different way the topic of treatment. I wanted to highlight that unfortunately, because of the pandemic, it was very clear that we have to produce our active pharmaceutical ingredients in Brazil. We cannot depend only on the foreigners. So we have to develop these herbal products. There is an awareness from Fabian to combat COVID and the actions of the Ministry of Health to develop medications and vaccines against COVID. So it is an interesting moment of reflection and hope that this area will be encouraged and developed in our country. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Sandra. Well, I can only thank for the excellent panel, and I learned a lot. The options that Francine and Cristina brought to us, different ways to act, solve some of the bottlenecks. I am very grateful for receiving this information, and I really wish this panel would be only the beginning of a conversation and we can have concrete actions being visualized with time. So I want to thank Tatiana and all of you for this beautiful effort that is to perform this work together, different people to discuss extremely important topics for the Amazon. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sandra. Francine, your turn. I also want to thank for the opportunity to share and learn with all of you. When we participate in these discussions, we always leave richer in terms of knowledge and thinking about how we can contribute and improve in their own performance. As a key message, I would like to leave here the intention of all the links of these chains, all the stakeholders can allow themselves to trust each other more so we can build a great model of partnership with good results for us and to Brazil because of the potential that we have here. I want to believe that especially because we have representatives of the communities, representatives of the private sector and the academic sector. So how can we gather to make all this happen and we can become a great player and a model to be followed by the other countries as a potential for innovation and valuation of knowledge. Thank you once again. Thank you, Francine. Well,
I'm very happy to participate in this panel and this event. Thank you, Professor Tatiana, who's always talking to us, speaking this way, gathering us indigenous guys. And I'd also like to say that we are always looking for this opportunity to talk about our knowledge as equals. Researchers, investors, anybody who is interested, sitting on a table to talk because it has never been like this. So I thank again for the opportunity. And I hope we continue these conversations, but also talking to reach somewhere. When we do a workshop, when we finish it, we already schedule another one and they go from workshop to workshop, and that's not what we want. We want to work. Perfect, João. Cristina, I also thank you for the opportunity to participate in this debate. Again, as Fran said, the opportunity to learn has been a pleasure. It's very interesting to get to know João's work. I think the pandemic has put us apart physically, but on the other hand, through these virtual encounters, it has allowed for these high-level discussions where we can connect and see each other, think together, a stronger Brazil with a standing forest. Thank you also, Professor Spartaco and Sandra, for the statements that enriched our conversation greatly. João Paulo and Fran, it's always a pleasure to see you. And Mariana and the event, I thank you for the organization and all the rest. Thank you, Cristina. I would like to thank you for watching, participants in the panel for accepting our invitation, Professor Sparta, Francine, João, Sandra, Cristina. This is what the forum is about, to have these conversations and put players together to execute actions in the near future. Thank you, everyone. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.